All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jaime Drennan. I'm one of the productization coaches here at Vectorus. Whoop. Where are we going? All right. Hopefully everyone can still see my screen there. I am one of the productization coaches here at Vectorus. Vectorus works with professional service firms to help them monetize and productize their intellectual property. We offer practical solutions at every step of the journey to help you streamline, simplify, and just make you more effective overall. So from developing and standardizing your services and taking that first offer to market all the way to commercializing, focusing on your go-to-market strategy. And then once you have successful products in the market, really helping you with more change management and transformation elements as you transform your organization to support your mix of both services and products. So our services are designed around a learn by doing model. Our customers consistently get to market in half the time with products that are 4 times more likely to succeed. Vectorus provides support through our own unique IP, our dedicated coaches, our accelerator program, practical tools and guidance through our knowledge hub, and then structured peer support and networking. So if you'd like to learn more about how Vectorus can help you, click on the Get More Information link at the top of the chat. So Vectorus has our productized pathway is the process that we follow in order to help organizations productize their services. So you see there in the middle, the productized pathway, and that's really the essential steps that you need to take in order to productize your services. We've codified this in 2 books. The blue book, Productize, really takes you through the process. And then the white book, Fearless, takes you through the cultural elements and the change management pieces for the new behaviors and mindset shifts in order to make this transformation successful. Before we get into the research coming out of those books that we're going to talk about today, we want to talk a little bit about this. I want to share a little bit of this story. So what went wrong with this product? Now, I can't see people's faces, but I'm not sure if people have heard of Google Glass. If you have not, no worries, it was not a successful product, so you don't need to know about it. Cliff Notes version, Google Glass was a pair of glasses that you wore on your face. You could look at something and it would search the internet for that thing. So pretty much it was like wearing a smartphone on your face. Now, this might seem really cool, and all the engineers at Google thought that it was really cool. So why did it fail? No one really needed it, right? Was searching for something by looking at it. Was that really that much easier to put on glasses and then look at something than just to pull out your smartphone and search for something that way? No one really thought so, and it didn't take off. It was also a pretty pricey product that you looked a little bit silly wearing. So the engineers at Google thought, wow, this is really cool technology. We can do it. No one else in the market is doing this, and therefore we should do it. And in hindsight, we can look back and say, well, no one needed it, and so it didn't sell. And so to have that kind of clarity in hindsight, looking back and saying customers didn't need this, and that's why the product wasn't successful, we want to talk about how we can design our product innovation processes so that we get that kind of clarity when we're looking forward. How can we learn things about our customers, learn about their needs and what they want, what they don't want, what they need, what they don't need when we're looking forward, so that we don't have to spend a lot of time and money developing something that no one is going to purchase. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get that kind of clarity when we're looking forward and designing products, and so that we don't just have to get that clarity after something fails. Before I get too ahead of myself, though, I want to just define what productize means, because you'll hear me say it a lot. So to us, productize means the transformation of a service, when we say service, we're talking about something that is one-to-one. It's very bespoke, into a more scalable offering that is sold one-to-many, and that can be easily repeated. We're also, when we're talking about productization, we're thinking a little bit about organizational change that's needed to support a new business model. So one word means a lot of things. We'll go into a little bit more detail, but hopefully that clarifies that we're taking a service to a product when we're talking about productization. As we get a little bit further, there's also two altitudes to productization. The first in the blue here, that's the nuts and bolts. That's how do I actually take a service or elements of my service and move it into a product. The second is the orange bucket here, and that's the evolution of the organization to support this transformation. So there are a lot of, again, mindsets, behaviors that need to be changed in order to make the process of service to product really go smoothly and be successful. So we'll dig into first the nuts and bolts, and then we'll talk a little bit about the cultural elements that need to happen in order to make this successful. So some of you might have seen our product innovation ladder here that I have on the screen. Others might be brand new to it. But overall, this is the kind of core element of what we're talking about when we're talking about taking a service to a product. It doesn't look the same, and there's definitely different ways to productize a service. But at the core, you see on the y-axis here, the benefits. So why do people productize? They want to get the scale that usually you can only get with increased technology as you get more productized instead of customized. You see better margins, improved revenue visibility, tongue-tied over here. We see more recurring revenue, increased company valuations, and a product can be sold by a professional sales force versus something that's custom really needs someone to know the ins and outs of all the service offerings that you can deliver. On the x-axis there, you see the use of technology. So as we walk up this ladder, typically, not always, we see the use of technology increase. And this is where Vectorist is really unique. In most of the content that's out there for products or product teams, focus on consumer products and also focus on companies that have always had technology as a core part of their offering. So here you see in the customized service, that orange bucket, there's a lot of times low use of technology. And so we're going to help you integrate different technologies as you step up this ladder. So I'm going to walk you through it. This first orange bucket is probably the most familiar to everyone. This is a custom service. It requires arms and legs in order to deliver the service. And the way to scale is to hire more people to deliver more service. And so that's obviously not particularly scalable, which is why people come to Vectorist to begin with. As you step up the ladder to that light blue box, you see a productized service. Now, this still requires arms and legs to deliver, but it's been standardized. So you now don't have something that's unique to every single customer, but maybe we've taken things that we do all the time. We've created a standard offering, and that's our productized service. It's important to note that customers don't always know that something has been productized. We don't have to say, hey, this is the standardized offering. Sometimes we can, but there are elements of the service that maybe your team on the back end delivers the same way each time. That falls into this productized services bucket. As you take one more step up the ladder, you get to products. Now, in this bucket, this is where you start to hear people use the phrase off the shelf. And that phrase is very scary and makes people that have grown up in a services organization very uncomfortable. And so this typically is where we see you don't need a arms and legs, you don't need a person to deliver the service. You still need people to build the product, but then you're selling it one to many without a component of kind of human interaction for delivery of the product. Now, this is where use of technology typically increases, but there are plenty of situations where an off-the-shelf product like a book or a data package or a research report can be low tech and still be considered a product here. And then the last one is a product as a service. So this is still where we don't require a human to deliver the product, but it's recurring. So this is where you see subscriptions come into play and you really get the full benefit, all the benefits that you see then on that left-hand side of having a product as a service. So this is kind of the maximum scale. Now, it's important to note that a lot of companies that we see, they don't necessarily want to take all of their customized services and move into a fully product as a service model. Most of our customers take a portfolio approach and they say, how can I deliver the most value to my customers through a mix of all these different buckets? And so ask yourself the question, where am I today? Where do I need to go in order to get the benefits that I want and in order to deliver the most value to my customers? Now, I want to bring this to life a little bit. So before we move on, I'm going to tell you a little story about a kid's birthday party and how you can apply this framework to your services or really any service that exists. So the first is that customized bucket. So this would be a face painter showing up to a kid's birthday party, and every kid that walks up, they get to choose anything that they want. So you obviously then need a person to deliver the services. You need all the paint colors. You need someone that's probably a pretty good artist to be able to deliver anything. That's custom. That's what we're used to. One step up, still you have a face painter at the party, but the face painter says you can be Spider-Man or you can be a butterfly. Now, all of a sudden, you can deliver those two face painting services much more quickly. You only have to have certain colors, and you could probably train someone who's not as great of an artist to do those two face painting, I don't know what the word would be there, face paints really well. As you move up to a product, you might have a temporary tattoo that you hand out to kids at the birthday party instead of a face painter. So this would be an off-the-shelf offering that still solves the problem of having something on the kid's face. You could still have Spider-Man, you could still have butterflies, but it wouldn't be painted. It would be in the form of a temporary tattoo. And then all the way up to a product as a service, this would be a temporary tattoo of the month club. You show up, you get your first tattoo, and then every month you're going to get a new tattoo in the mail. So that's how that comes to life a little bit more. And you can see how this can be applied to any service really that's out there. So that was our first altitude of productization. The second altitude is going to be the organizational change that's required and what you want your organization to look like once you've productized. Now, it's important to note before I dig into these that you can start in one and move to another. You can kind of be aiming for a mix of both. But the reason that we bring this up is that the ingredients from the productized pathway are all the same, but the amount of each ingredient, the amount of change management required, looks a little bit different depending on your North Star and what you want your organization to look like throughout this journey. So keep that in mind as I go through these and think a little bit more about what you want your organization to become. So the first archetype here is where customers come to us and they say, I'm really struggling with delivery. I want to standardize, I want to tech enable the delivery of my services. So this is just making things more efficient on the back end, putting things into buckets, like creating standardized process or elements. A lot of times increasing technology. We've seen a lot of people starting to use AI that are in this bucket. The next bucket up is bringing products to market to complement services. So this is where we start to talk about what a bundled solution. And so what that is exactly what it sounds like. It's a product and a service, and it's sold together to the same market. So this is where you can start to think about value and how can the assets, the data, the IP that we have, that we use in our services, how can that be bundled and packaged up so that it can be of value to our customers in addition to our services. The next one over is building a new products business entirely. A lot of times we don't see people start with this one, but we see them land here. So we'll see product ideas take off and either need to be sold to another market or have a different growth trajectory than their services business. And they say, hey, I need to stand this up as its own organization, its own legal entity, its own P&L. So again, that can be something that you aim for, that can be something that you start with, or it can be something that you kind of stumble into. But we want to make sure we're helping you get there if that's where you want to go. And then the last one is fully productizing. I want to sunset my services. I want to get out of the custom services game because it's really hard. And I want to go into fully productized. I'm aiming for that product as a service. I want to become a tech product company. And that's what I want to lead with. Now, keeping in mind that a lot of product companies still have implementation, services, and other things. But if that's your North Star, obviously more change management required for Archetype 4 than, hey, I just want to standardize delivery of my services. So that's why we want to be thinking a little bit about where we want to go, what we want to become as an organization at that second altitude. So take a moment, think a little bit about that, and Vectorist can help you no matter which archetype you're aiming for. So big thing, no matter which bucket you fall into in terms of your archetype for your organization, no matter where your current services fall on the product innovation ladder and where you want to go, overall, we still need, in order to be successful in productization, we need to think differently about how we create value. And that's something that's really difficult for services organizations. So like I mentioned at the beginning, Vectorist specializes in helping B2B organizations that are historically services companies move to products. And that requires a lot more change management than probably what you're used to seeing in traditional kind of product content that's out there. So let's talk a little bit about this. Now, one organization that we worked with described this as, it's like taking Serena Williams and dropping her on a soccer field, right? She's an incredible athlete. She has grit. She's a fierce competitor. All those things you can harness and take with you, but Serena would still need to learn some new skills if she was going to be successful on a soccer field. And so really important to realize and recognize that that's a big change that you're asking your leadership teams, your employees to do. We're not just asking them to follow a process, but we need them to really lean into some of these mindset shifts. So through our research, we've come up with 4 pillars that make services organizations great. And those things don't always translate to a great products culture. So I want to run you through some of these. And feel free to drop some comments in the chat or questions. Usually I can see some head nods. I can't see people here on LinkedIn Live, but feel free to drop questions if you have any. So the first thing in a services organization is that we feel like we need to be experts. We need to know things. And that's why people come to us. People come to me so that I can tell them things. And that's where my value comes in. To create products that you sell one to many, we need to think more about what we can learn from customers. What can we discover? So we need to be curious and say, you know what? Like, tell me more about what would be valuable to you, so that we can harness that and create products that are going to serve many customers instead of just working one-to-one. And that can be really difficult for people that have built their careers and their reputations on knowing things. The second one is perfectionism. Now, I'm kind of a recovering perfectionist over here, like a lot of others that we work with at our clients' locations, where you deliver something one-to-one and you want it to be perfect. They've hired us to do this bespoke offering, and I'm holding myself to the highest standards because that's what our customers are used to. That's what they expect from us. That's what they expect from me. All of a sudden, we need to say, in order for this product to be successful, I need to get it out into the market and see what happens, see how people use a product. So I need to value speed over perfection in order to be successful. And that probably means showing something that's not quite up to the same standards that we're used to in our services business. And that makes people with perfectionist tendencies very uncomfortable. The next thing is scarcity thinking. We're used to time and materials. We're used to that immediate revenue. I sell one thing, I get revenue back from it. That's all there is. As we move to abundance thinking, I had talked a little bit about bundles. Salespeople, leadership get really uncomfortable sometimes when we're thinking about something that is a custom services offering that's usually pretty highly priced, and saying, wait, instead of selling this bespoke, expensive thing to a customer, you want me to sell them a product that's usually lower priced? Like, why would I make that switch? That doesn't make sense. And so we need people to lean in to the fact that just because you have products, you can sell both products and services at the same time and get even more from customers, because the goal at the end of the day is to create more value and deliver products that are complementing your services if you're in that archetype too. So think a little bit more about that, and lean into abundance thinking instead of scarcity thinking. The last one is individual heroics. So most services organizations pat people on the back for going above and beyond for one client. We still might want to do this for people that are in the services part of our business, but we want to make sure that we're collaborating and we're valuing new ideas, and people aren't saying, hey, I'm not going to share this idea more broadly with the organization because I want to deliver it for my one customer and kind of get recognized for that. Instead, what if we believed that if we shared ideas more freely and created a great product, that's how we deliver value? That's how we would deliver the most value, is by collaborating, sharing ideas, and partnering with everyone instead of just working very individually to differentiate yourself. So take a minute, think about which one of these you yourself might struggle with the most, and then which ones your organization might struggle with the most. And then, reach out. There's a link in the chat if you want to talk through these with a coach in a little bit more detail and learn how Vectorist can help you overcome some of these cultural barriers at your organization. So the way that we do that is through this productized pathway. This is the process that our coaches help with in order to productize your services. So we'll dig into this in a little bit more detail, but we want to align, make sure that we have the same North Star, right? Where are we going? We want to understand the customers and define their urgent and expensive problems. We want to co-design with our customers. make sure that they're helping us iterate to drive more value for them as we develop the solution. Then we want to launch boldly and make sure we're designing go-to-market strategies that are going to lead to the most success. And then finally, we're managing. But you see that even managing and road mapping and iterating, this is a circle. The process keeps going, and we want to make sure that we're helping customers really embed this process into their everyday, and that we're really learning what skills, what competencies are needed in our organization in order to do these different elements well, and really get to that middle of a product-friendly culture. So good news, bad news here as we move into the back half of this webinar is we've found through the research that there are 7 big mistakes that organizations make as they try to productize their services. Bad news is that there's 7 of them. Like, that's kind of a lot, right? You look for things that are like, hey, change this one thing, change 2 things, and you're good to go. So 7 is a lot. The good news, though, is that they're really predictable. We see people fall down at the same places time and time again. And so that makes it really effective for Vectorists to help people as you stumble on some of these pretty common mistakes. So I'm going to walk you through them quickly, and then we'll leave time at the end for some questions. The first one is starting too big and too perfectly. This is one that's really hard for perfectionists. But what happens if you try to do something that's too big, that's too perfect, you lose revenue because it takes too long, right? That's that element of speed that we're looking for. It also loses to competition. So in today's age, right, there's generative AI, there's people that are out there actively looking to displace our services through technology. There's companies out there that are actively trying to solve the same customer problems that we solve today. And so if we try to do something too perfectly, we're going to lose out to competition. And the last one, it flops due to poor market fit. We think, again, as services professionals, that we know everything. We've lived in this space for a long time. And so we take a long time to develop this thing that's perfect. And we forget that we need to keep up with what's happening in the market. We need to get something out there and let people test it and discover the value for themselves. So minimum viable product is a concept that is not new. I'm sure everyone has heard this phrase, but it's important. So I'm going to remind you what it means yet again, one more time. The first thing is minimum. We want it to be small, bare bones of a solution. Again, not going so perfect or so big off the bat. Second, we want it to be viable. We want it to be sufficient enough for early adopters. Sometimes you also hear valuable thrown in as this V. So minimum viable, valuable product. It has to solve a problem for customers. It has to still give them value. It can't just be something that's small because it was easy for us to do. It has to be small and still viable and valuable for them. And then the P is product. It has to be something that's tangible. It can't be an idea. The MVP is an actual thing. And so starting with an MVP, and there are lots of different MVPs that we can help you work through that make the most sense for your business. But starting with an MVP really helps you get out of that perfectionist mindset and lean into the speed that's needed to be successful in productization. I want to give an example from a B2B organization that we've worked with that has done an MVP well. So you see on the left-hand side this spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet that was actually sold to customers. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, right? People are used to things on the right-hand side. This is the level of quality that our customers are used to. And this organization was no different. They were uncomfortable on the left-hand side. And so we tell people to think big, right? Envision where you're going. Think about this interactive dashboard, but start at an MVP. So this data was still valuable to them. It was not fancy, but people could get in. It was tangible. They could use it. And then the organization could learn how they used it in order to deliver a great final solution, or, V2, V3. I shouldn't say final, as products are kind of never final. They're always being improved to deliver more value. And we lean into this uncomfortableness. And Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, famously said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. Like, think about that for a second. Embarrassed. That's a big word. That's a big feeling. And it's really hard for people in services organizations. So lean into that. Second mistake is focusing on processes before people. And sometimes people think that we're saying focus on people before processes. What we really mean here is that they have to come together in order for us to be successful. So we found that when people focus on processes only and they forget to bring the people along, it doesn't go well. So employees either wait to be told and they just don't really act. They waste a bunch of time because they don't know what they're doing. They don't really understand the process. It doesn't flow with their day-to-day work. Or they actively wreck and they work against what's happening with this process because they don't agree with it. It makes them angry. So this is, pretty good data for why not to just say, here's a new process, you have to go do this on its own. The second way, though, doesn't work any better, just winning hearts and minds. So we've seen organizations that try to take a softer approach, and instead of saying, hey, you have to follow this process, they say, we're gonna just talk a little bit about why this is important, why this thing is something that you should do. And that's even less successful, right? Only 1% impact on employees. This is something I had just recently been talking to someone about. They've been talking a lot about AI, for example. It's important. We want people in the organization to use it. It's new, it's great, it's going to help us. But not putting anything in place to help people actually harness that technology and utilize it for change and for the good of the organization. And so we recommended just starting with something as simple as, in your team meeting, just asking people how they used AI that week. Like, if I was being asked, right, how did you use AI this week, Jaime? I'm probably going to start to use it. I think it's important, but now that it's part of a process, it's part of something that I'm actively engaged in, we're much more likely to see the behavior change that we want. So people and processes together is going to lead to the best behavior change. Overall, we just have to make it easier for people to do the behavior that we want them to do than it is to do the behavior that we don't want them to do. Easier said than done. Again, Vectorist can help you design processes and bring your people along to see the most behavior change. Mistake number 3, favoring core businesses rather than new products. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. We see this all the time. We try something, a new product doesn't do well, and so we think, well, the next one might not do well, and leaders underinvest, or salespeople don't put the new thing in a proposal, and what happens is that new product fails. And it's kind of a no-brainer that it fails, right? It's underinvested, it's under-resourced, people aren't giving it the time and attention that it needs, and therefore it failed. Then we say, oh, new products just might not work here. So we want to make sure that we're designing systems that are going to protect our core business. We still have to keep the lights on, but that we're working towards innovation and we're making sure we're creating space for people to do that. Empower Media did this, and they split their people into fortifiers and explorers. Fortifiers were those people that were focused on core business. They had traditional metrics, their core budget. And then explorers were focused on innovation. They had independent budget. They had different success measures. And this really helped them drive innovation forward. I mentioned the success measures specifically here because if we're looking at our core business that, maybe for the last 5 years we've had this service and here's how much revenue it brings in, and we launch a new product and then we look at the next quarter's revenue and we say which one had more revenue, it's almost always going to be the core business that's been around if those are the traditional metrics that you're looking at. So when you're thinking about innovation, we usually look at wanting to see adoption or usage of a new product or technology. Then we look for revenue. Then we look for profitability. Now, anyone who's done any work with org structure or any work with models there will know that there's no kind of one size fits all to something like this. But there are options when we're thinking about how do we protect our core business and protect innovation. So we can help you work with different operating models, different org structures that might work if you see this is a risk for your organization, or you see people really kind of being risk averse with innovation in favor of the core business. Mistake number 4 is the biggie. So this one, I think we get asked all the time, like, of the 7, which one, what's the biggest mistake that people make? And it's this one. I don't know why we have it as number 4. It probably should be number 1 because of that reason. But not solving a product or not solving a problem not developing a product that solves an urgent and expensive problem is the biggest mistake that we see people make. So what do companies do if they don't solve a problem for their customers? They look internally at first and they say, what capabilities do we have? What new technologies out there? What can we do? Then they look and they say, is anyone in the market doing this? And if those 2 things are true, they say we should develop a product off of it. That gets you Google Glass though, right? Google Glass, very cool technology. Google's engineers were more than capable of developing the technology, and no one was developing anything like Google Glass in the marketplace. So why didn't it succeed? Because it didn't solve an urgent and expensive customer problem. So when we think about urgent and expensive problems, what that means is in order for a problem to be urgent, the customer needs to feel enough pain around it that they want to solve it this year. In order for a problem to be expensive, they have to allocate budget or dedicate resources to solving this problem. And this is where, we get asked about expensive a lot. If there's a perfectly good free alternative that they're like, I don't know, I use this free solution, right? They have to feel enough pain or think that your solution is that much better. So we want to look for problems first. How do I solve a customer problem? And then I solve a problem that is both urgent and expensive. And it does have to be both. So we go back to this quote a lot. If I had 60 minutes to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes defining it and just 5 minutes solving it. So that quote is attributed to Einstein. Let that sink in a little bit. Most people don't do this. Most people see a problem and they immediately think of a solution. They don't take the time to uncover why the problem's urgent, why it's expensive, what's the root cause, why does it exist, who does it exist for? And so making sure we're spending enough time figuring out the problem before we jump right to solutioning. Another way to think about this is if you get the urgent and expensive problem right, you could still fall down in development. You could still fall down in sales or go to market. Innovation is risky, but we're de-risking by coming up with the urgent and expensive problem. So if you don't land on an urgent and expensive problem, there's no way for anything to go right. So that's a really key input in order to develop a successful product. So we just have to add this top layer on for what customers will actually pay for. Mistake number 5 is designing and developing in a vacuum. We see this all the time. Someone's like, I've got my urgent and expensive problem, and then they never talk to customers again until they launch. Lego does this really well. They have an ideas portal where you can not only submit an idea for a new Lego kit, you submit an idea, Lego kind of mocks up what it would look like. Customers can then say, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. And then everyone can vote on the kits that should actually be developed. Kits that have come out of this include the Beatles' Yellow Submarine and the Motel from Schitt's Creek. So this co-design solution and approach has helped Lego design kits that fly off the shelves. These ones sell out almost every kit that's come out of this idea portal. So remember that ugly MVP? Like the whole point of getting it out there fast is making sure that we can iterate on it. And so we can ask customers, hey, now that you have this spreadsheet, tell me which columns you used. How did you manipulate the data? What did you do with the data after you got it into a state that was useful? Did you put it into another system? Did you combine it with a piece of data that's not in our spreadsheet? What columns did you use every day versus once a quarter? All the answers to how they actually use this ugly MVP will help them design a better V2, V3, V4. Mistake number 6, cruising right along here through these last 2 mistakes, is letting fear of cannibalization hinder sales and marketing. Now, we've talked a little bit about this one, is that people in services organizations get really scared when you're like, this product is not going to be as expensive as a big custom service. And that might be okay, right? We could sell them together, or we could sell a lot more products because we can sell one to many. We can scale that way. And we want to not be afraid of that, right? Like, let's not be afraid of innovating ourselves. Let's be afraid of other people cannibalizing us. So you might have seen this quote before from Steve Jobs, where he said, if you don't cannibalize yourself, someone else will. And I think in this age of AI and over the next couple of years, seeing the vast change that's going to come from that technology, this is true more than ever, is how do we kind of shift our fear to say, let's displace ourselves before someone else does. Right? The iPod is non-existent now that music is in iPhones. And this kind of came about because Motorola was starting to let people put MP3s and listen to MP3s on phones. And that really scared Apple. And the iPod was their cash cow for a while. So they made these changes themselves and really then were able to cannibalize themselves before someone else did. Now, the last mistake is stopping at the MVP. The MVP is not intended, that ugly spreadsheet isn't intended to be sold forever in that form. Dyson does a really good job with this. They are on over 5,000 versions of their vacuum. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I see Dyson as an incredibly innovative company. And you know that they're always testing and they're always getting better. That's their brand perception, is being market leaders and being at the forefront of innovation. And that's what iterating helps you do. Co-creating with customers, listening to customers, and then always making next iterations in the pursuit of value. So keep in mind that our customers can handle imperfections as long as they're in the pursuit of additional value to them. So I went through those kind of at lightning speed, but those are the 7 deadly productization mistakes. So take a minute here, reflect on which ones you think might be the hardest for your organization, and where you might want additional support overcoming those mistakes. All right, now no matter where you're at in your productization journey, Vectorist can provide support to make you more effective. A reminder, our customers get to market 50% faster, and their products are 4 times more likely to succeed. So find out more about how Vectorist can help your organization. Either click the Get More Information link that's in the chat, or send an email to molly.connolly@vectorist.com, the email that you see there on the screen. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and we'll open it up here for questions. I didn't see too many questions come in during the presentation. Feel free to drop them in the chat, or I think people might be able to come off mute as well. All right, doesn't look like we have a ton of questions. Feel free to email them to molly.connolly@vectorist.com, or find us on LinkedIn, or through our website.
Can I ask a question?
Definitely. Yeah, thank you.
So, we run a business which is to provide engineering services. Okay. The dilemma what we always have is how do we decide what to productize? Because each of our customer is unique, and we need to be very customized to serve them. However, we occasionally feel that, hey, we're solving a similar problem, so can we go and go on this productized path? Is there any guidance in terms of how do we make a choice on what to productize?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So starting off, understanding the similarities in the problems is the place that we find people starting. So understanding the urgent and expensive problems, and then when you have those, how pervasive are those problems in the market? And a lot of times you can do that by just talking to people. So we recommend kind of taking that conversation out of some of your services interactions and saying, hey, we'd love to get 30 minutes or 60 minutes to just understand and learn from you as we want to create products that are going to help solve problems for you and make your day-to-day better. So kind of focusing it on we're learning, and then having an interview guide that's set with questions to understand those problems. Once you understand those and the problems that you're best positioned to solve and that have the best chance of success in the market, you can then prioritize which ones to go about solving. But I'd focus on solving the problem and prioritizing the problem before you think about the solutions there.
Got it. I've also got a copy of your book, so
good.
Maybe that'll give me a few more questions, and I'll remain in touch.
Definitely, yeah. Reach out. We're happy to send in questions, or we'd love to have a follow-up conversation to talk more specifically about your business and how we can help with that. We run prioritization workshops and that kind of thing too to help you decide what makes the most sense to do first, second, and third.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Looks like we have another question from LinkedIn. Does Vectorist work with individuals, consultants, and coaches, for example? Maybe mention, that we definitely have worked with individuals. We have different solutions. Just like you all, we want to understand the problems that you're trying to solve for, and then we can let you know which one of our solutions makes the most sense. But we definitely can work with individuals. We've worked with smaller organizations, growth size organizations. and large enterprises. And we have different solutions for all those. I have another question coming in from LinkedIn that is asking, what is the customer journey for a Vectorous client in general? Good question. So we'd have you link up with Nicole or Jason or someone else on our team to really understand your problems. And then we'd work with you through seat holders. So we have a couple different seat holders at a company, and then through a mix of coaching, worked with our tools and templates and knowledge base, we'll put together a service plan for you and work through different elements of a service plan to achieve your milestones. So the journey can look a little bit different if you're trying to develop a new solution, if you're trying to commercialize a solution, or if you're trying to transform your business. But the core of all of those things is working with a coach, interacting with peers, and utilizing tools and templates and workshops in order to achieve the milestones that you're trying to achieve there. But definitely someone on the team can walk you through what that journey would look like for your organization and where you're at and the goals that you have. If you send a note to Molly Connolly or through the Get More Information form. Good question, though. I think we have time for a couple more. All right. I don't know that I see any other questions coming in from LinkedIn or here in the room, but I appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about productization and how that can look different at different organizations, depending on your goals and the types of services that you offer. And as a reminder, Vectorous can help meet you where you're at through our Learn by Doing model to help you achieve those different outcomes and goals that you have. So we're happy to connect, again, go through more kind of individual question and answer sessions if you send a note to Molly Connolly or click on that link in the chat.